Okay, let's welcome to the 9:30 show. Okay, let's start out right away. We're talking about items important to young people, items important to their future, items important to their lives. Let's start off with understanding medications. Medications. Medications like antibiotics for animals used to be always an over-the-counter item. In some places they still are. There are still some states where they still are. When you're a impoverished, broke person, I want you to keep this in mind. When you have a part-time job and you're spending half of your money from your part-time job for gasoline just to go back and forth to work for your part-time job, that means you're probably a starving student. I've seen this. If you go to the schools, go to the nearby colleges, go around to some of these places and pay attention to people crying and whining. You're going to hear guys whining. You're going to hear girls bawling in tears. If you hang out, you're going to hear girls bawling in tears, begging for money from their parents, from anybody, because they got a part-time job and half the money, sometimes more, by the way. I've seen cases where someone has a half pay, got a 4-hour job, and they spend 2.5 hours of the money that they make, 2.5, more than half, just to put gasoline to go back and forth to their job. Now, my solution here immediately was, we need to get all of these people with a conversion kit. Retrofit them out, get a conversion kit to what? Propane? Why? It's the green thing to do. Why? We fracked the whole country. This happened back during Bush and Obama. And we did it. And the agreement, here's the thing, the agreement was that we have a national resource and we need to work that national resource. That's the agreement, so we could get to the natural gas. Well, now we need it. Prices are real high. So what do? In the interest of the country, that one of the cheapest ways to help do green stuff is plain and simple. You retrofit the nation. So my plan was immediately to provide a plan for 10,000 conversions. 10,000 conversions. That's a lot of conversions. It's not as expensive as you would think. So I put this out. It's something that I'd keep putting out. Every one of my campaigns, I'd keep putting it out. I was putting this out starting way back in like 2005 as a presidential candidate for 2008. Mass conversion. It's in our interest. It's high price. It makes sense. So yeah, I put this season. Yeah, I put it out, man. It was more than about over 2 years ago, I believe. I put it out. I thought that the Biden administration would take hold of what I was laying out and say, "Hey, Mike, we'd like to use this idea. Is it okay?" Nah, nobody calls me up. Nobody implements the policy. The plan, the whatever, nobody did it. But there it is in ads. There's tweets on it. Way back when, the solution already laid out. There it is. Boom. So you supplement people. Why? By the way, converting your fuel to propane or natural gas basically drops your fuel expenses more than 50%. More than 50%. So somebody even financing you for a conversion would be brilliant. You could do the delayed plan, a conversion kit can be had for $250. I've seen them for less. You can buy some that are online for some cars about $89. not including the tank. Now you need the tank and you need a hose, and you got to have something of a professional mechanic install it. Unless you're a genius and can do it yourself. Now I can do all that stuff myself. No problem at all. I've got that skill set. It's not a problem. So 10 million conversion kits, boom. That's out there. As I'm doing the podcast, you'll probably see the cards come up where I was talking about it. Those things were put out years ago. I keep redoing them, So this is an ongoing policy all the way back since 2005. It's a solution. Immediately reduce the cost of fuel for all students by 50%. Is that a forward-moving solution? Of course it is. Of course it is. So getting this done had a flip side of it. I'll explain later on to people how the flip side goes, because there's a flip side that deals with handling chemicals that people don't understand the progressive future of certain chemicals. For instance, one of my things was basically 90% of hydrazine, and this is used for maneuvering engines and rockets and stuff like that. It's not a base lift fuel, but it's used as maneuvering for various types of satellites. But they can't sell it. They produce way more of it than they can sell. And a lot of that is when you drive by and you see them burning stacks off at oil refineries. There's hydrazine in that. And they just burn it off because they have no place to store it. So my policy was, let's get a item going for containers and get those products into those containers instead of burning them. Why waste them? Why waste it and burn it and create a hot problem? Why increase the heat of the planet of the Earth burning something when you can bottle it and save it? What is it? It's a commodity. Oh, but we can't sell it now. That doesn't matter. You put it in longevous bottles, containers, and you save it, because hydrazine has a different decay rate than what other people might think. Like gasoline, gasoline gets old. You can store gasoline up to about 2 years in a cool place if you do it right. You can get something known as a recatalyzer. You recatalyze the fuel, gasoline. You can do that. That means you can keep it 10 years if you recatalyze it, even longer sometimes. But hydrazine's different. It has a different rate of decaying, so to speak. So hydrazine can be used as a fuel in many other instances. So what is it? It's a commodity. In other words, it's like silver or gold, which is small, right? Okay, what about oil and gasoline? A barrel of oil? Oh, that's worth a lot of money. Barrel of oil keeps a long time. So these are commodities. So we're going to store all the hydrazine as a commodity. That means we can borrow money against it. We store it on private property, and we can borrow money against it and invest the money. And then, then you use the 3-lock-box plan, which I talked about. You need to catch that. How to take $100,000 and turn it into $6 million in 1 year and 2 months. It's a very real plan, very high-end plan. There are a lot of modifications to it, but yeah, it works very well. So I got texts coming back in. Okay, people, messages, okay. People want me to finish up talking about medications. Okay, and a lot of stuff. Then we got, for instance, we've got college students and homeless people. You're grouped together. You're in the same deal because you can't afford animal care. Yeah, there's kind of sort of some free clinics, but there are limitations. So keep in mind that you have people that want to pull medications off the shelf that are basically important. They want to pull, antibiotics off the shelf. Can you get high? See, here's the thing. Does anybody know anyone who gets high off of penicillin? No, you don't. The only thing you want to do is watch how much you take, because you can eventually become immune from it. So you can only estimate to take it about 10 times in your whole life. If you're a doctor, you would understand this. If you talk to your doctor about it, they could explain it to you. So you alternate styles of antibiotics to make sure that there's something that can help you with any problem that you might run into. But what happens when you take it off the shelf? Well, if it's not available for your animals, that means you have to go pay a vet bill. That might be $65. Do you have $65? They're sick. You can see the symptoms online. There's YouTube, there's this and that. And, there's other people that can give you free advice. But here's the thing. You pay the $65 and it says your animal's going to need antibiotics in a sequence for 7 days, maybe 10 days. So now you have to go buy a prescription. It might be like $18. So now, so now it's $18, and it's a little tiny bit. You used to be able to buy 10 times that amount, 10 times or more, for like $10, $7. There used to be able to you get a bottle. It was like $10, $12. It was 50 times what you would ever, in other words, you'd have a supply of this, keep it in a cool place. You'd have a 10-year supply, basically. Now, maybe you only want to keep it for 5 years, just in case, But, so, in other words, 65 and 18 is 75, might as well say 85. So let's round it here. So it's $85. How much gasoline to do that? To take your buddy down there? Did you spend $20? Yeah, so you're at $105. You're at $105. So before you could have spent $5 in gasoline and drove to a place and bought it over the counter for, $10, $12. And so you could have got this care for your buddy for under $20. So how are you helped by people who are grandstanding? Because they want extra control. Oh, I forgot you had to take off work or school, didn't you? Yeah, we got to equate that in there. So how much more did you lose? So, so here's the problem. Grandstanding. No reality. So you have other stuff that was on the shelf. It had basically, it would be a combination of antibiotics, penicillin, and cocaine, and you would be able to do teeth on your cattle, your horses, your cows, etc. Now the thing is that, yeah, you need a little training for this, but there's other people that have some training that will do this stuff for you more affordably. Do you want to have a vet look at your herd? Of course you do. Of course you do, but how much is your budget? How much is your budget? Because you have to think about this. This is very important to understand. If you increase the type of supplements and medications that you need to give animals, plus you increase the cost of a veterinarian, going to drive out a veterinarian, you got big animals, it's liable to cost you $200. You find someone that's really nice, maybe $85. To come in and do a delivery, yeah, they're going to do house calls. So yeah, this is not a joke. So how much are you selling the meat for on the cow? This is no joke. You're growing chickens. Okay, how does that work now? You end up, if you read about it, it's a prescribed plan. You just normally give the chickens a certain amount of antibiotics every so often. You can read about it. It tells you how to do it. It's generally fairly simple to go ahead and do. It's not that big of a deal. But here's the thing. If you're raising your own stuff, you'll never be able to make a profit because you're not doing things the same way. But you're going to need various types of medicines, of vitamins, etc., if you want to grow your situation right, your animals and whatnot. So you have to figure out how much can you get for a chicken. So So how much does it cost for a vet to look at your chicken? You know, what's a live chicken wholesale worth? $5? $10? Oh, you have specialized chickens that are rare. Okay, fine. They're worth $80 to $300. Okay, you're onto something. How are you going to pay if you're growing chickens that are only worth $5? How can you possibly deal with somebody molesting an access situation to things that are supposed to be known? Keep in mind, these things have been known on how to deal with for the last 75 years. Easily, even longer. So people did it themselves, you know. Now, why would you have a vet? You'd have a vet come out and look at everything, kind of give it a once-over. Maybe focus on a few animals, you know. So it's going to cost you some money. You're going to, you know, maybe spend like $500. Of course, I don't know if you got a giant herd, it's going to cost you $5,000 or $50,000. It's a, you know, different numbers. But, you know, let's just say that you got a small place. So you have them, you pay them to come out and tell you things. They explain things as they go if they're a good vet. They show you how to mix the food right. Oh, you got a YouTube video on it? Okay. You know, they show you how to mix the food right, you know. But there's a lot, well, there's other good YouTube videos now too. But, you know, before, not so far long ago, you may not have been able to find YouTube videos. So it's crucial to pay these people at least once and have them on standby, because you might have to do it. You might have to call them up and say, what am I going to do? And they come out and they says, yeah, you got a problem. Okay, what do we give them? And says, well, we might be able to give them this. Okay, and it's going to cost so much per creature. Might average out to $15 a creature. And you're like, wait a minute, that's 3 times what I can sell them for. Well, it depends. Are they producing eggs for you? And are the eggs going to help increase your herd? Well, you just treated them and strengthened their genetics. So, yeah, you want to make sure that you let your chickens lay eggs again and go ahead and increase, you know, your situation, because you've got healthier creatures now. The flip side of this is they say, nope, you got the bad deal. You're going to have to kill them all. You know, oh, you waited too long. You know, well, if you're automatically giving them certain things, yada, yada. So you have to think about that. What are the costs on this? Because do we need the food? Well, how many millions of people keep coming over the border? Because there are estimates that unless we can figure out dramatic ways to increase beef production, which are really hard when you just don't have enough cows. You know, cows, you know, they only breed at a certain rate. You can buy some on the open market, but they come from someplace. You can only buy so many of them. Then you can go foreign. Okay, you go foreign. Again, there are limits to this. So if you absorb 30 million people into the country, each one of those people, you might as well calculate 1 cow a year. 1 cow a year for them. So it says, well, they're going to just eat beans. That's all they'll eat. Okay, fine. But in reality, if we can't solve the acquisition problem, what's going to happen in about 6 years is steak's going to go up to like 40, 50, 60 bucks a pound. A pound. So this is not a joke. This situation is not a joke. We have problems. We have to deal with these problems. We have to figure out solutions, real solutions. In my view, what do we need? Well, in my view, we definitely need more meat. You know, no matter which way you slice it, we need more meat in this country. You know, we need to have more protected herds, and that's costs money. There's no way around it. So there's that. So I kind of laid out a little bit on expense so people can understand how some of this works a little bit. So let's go back and look at some of this. Let's keep everything scientific. Once again, everything's scientific. So spread patterns. Anybody understand what spread patterns are? I hope people can understand the scientific understanding of spread patterns. Sometimes it's kind of hard to find info. You got to know how to search it. Okay, spread patterns, in case you didn't know. If you cough more, you have a larger spread pattern signature. You're going to be throwing more stuff out. If you sneeze more, again, the more you sneeze, the more stuff's going to come out. If you take a medicine that relieves or reduces your symptoms, and there's different types of stuff that way, so of ways to do that. So, basically one of the ways that you do that is you get the best medicine you can, but that's not always the case. So keep in mind, you can put out an array of 30 relief medications, and they're all a different grade. They all give a different type of relief. Now, of course, some of you have to be, careful, because some of you can react differently to drugs. That's also the way this works too. Some people react differently. Basically, I think it's 4 people in 1 million can die from Tylenol because it doesn't do anything for them and they're genetically allergic to it. But that's a teeny tiny statistic, so why would you bother, right? We've got 300 million people in this country and only 140 or 50 million of them take Tylenol. So the understanding with many of these people is they got tested. So the vast majority of them, they already know from a doctor and that says, look, you're genetically an anomaly. Don't take Tylenol. It's poison to you. So you would know. It's this incredible rarity, but you would know. But someplace into the statistic, you're having some kind of number that's like hidden that they don't want to talk about. And it's like 4 to 40 people every year in the United States die from Tylenol because it's poison to them. They're just genetically incompatible. Someone's going to say, well, you sound like Kennedy now. Okay, but going on with the point here is that you should obviously, when you're young, find out what you can take and what you can't take. And that way your medical files are updated and you know what's in your medical files. So you would know what you can take, what kind of stuff, because some stuff can be bad on your liver, so forth, etc. Read the bottle. You'll see what's there. Now, unfortunately, some of the best medications that we ever invented were pulled off the shelves many, many years ago because people started grandstanding. They started grandstanding and saying, oh, we're going to stop people from abusing these drugs. Okay, this is what happens. You have people continuously pull medication off the shelves that used to be there for 75 years. No joke here. Okay, used to be there for 75 years. So now you have this problem where instead of you dealing with the 1 to 6 variations, in other words, this medication just dries you up completely, stops all your coughs, stops all your sneezing, and it lasts for 12 to 20 hours. Good stuff. Oops, that one's got banned. They took that one off the shelf. Now, everybody would have these. You'd have them in your car, you'd have them at work, in your desk, you'd have them at home, so it would be within reach. So if you started to feel like you had symptoms and you were getting sick, you just go take some medicine. So you just do it. You just do it. So even though you might be coming down with, let's say, COVID, basically most people are going to just fight it out. They're going to finish out going through the day. So even if they wake up and they're a little bit sick, they're going to go through the day and then come back home and realize, wow, I'm like really sick. Okay, and then, or it could come on in the midday whenever, and then you're going to go to sleep. You're going to wake up in the morning. And it's like, wow, I'm really sick. So, understanding this has this crucial period. The crucial period is spread pattern. What's the spread pattern? Let's make sure we understand everything about the spread pattern. This is scientific. Need to understand this. So if you took the best medication, then you would be sneezing 16 times less per hour or per 10 minutes. You may not sneeze for 4 hours. You may not have coughing fits, etc. So this means what? Your spread pattern's dramatically reduced. That means you're not throwing the disease as far. You're not throwing the disease at frequency. See, because if you're sneezing 16 times in 10 minutes, then you're spreading the disease 16 times faster. Spread pattern here. So if you're driving down the road and you have a horrible, nasty snotting fit and it's all over you, now it's on your hands, it's on everything. The next place you stop, the door handles, unless you're gonna sanitize everything. Maybe you do. Maybe you're gonna do the hand cleaner or whatever. But then again, maybe it's gonna go all over the doors or whatever. You're running in trying to get to something, and you already had snot on your hands. Be honest with yourself. Now, be honest with yourself. You see people in stores all the time that are sick. This is, kids, parents, whatever. Not very funny. So when we look at the different levels of cold medicine, you can break them into, you can take these numbers and just slice them into 6 and work the different percentages, and that'll give you some spread pattern understanding. You can kind of in a layman's way, figure out a formula. You're likely to be fairly close, and you're guessing. Just read a little bit, get something to use as a baseline. That's your basic starting point. Work with those numbers to understand them, where you should do this. It's scientific. You need to do this. You really, really need to do this. So you have to understand spread patterns, because this is all scientific. This is science-based understanding. So when you have somebody that removed all the cold medicine off the shelf and you have this dramatically increased spread pattern, in other words, it depended. Some people were using other types of medication that didn't work as good. Other people couldn't get to any medication, and other people that used to have it stockpiled, because they'd keep pulling it off the shelf, people would have some and then they'd use it up, and then they'd go to replace it and it wasn't there. And then they get something else and it didn't work as well, and they'd try another thing and it didn't work, and try something else and go, okay, this partially works. So this is what happens in reality. This is how we go through life. So you have to realize what these numbers are. So you end up with a number. I came up with over 9,000 people the first year of COVID were dead, beyond the shadow of a doubt. It could have been as high as 14,000, but the statistics, the way they work, said it would be impossible to be less than 9,000 people by spread pattern. This is scientific, by the spread pattern. So this wonderful, supposedly intelligent design of pulling cold medicine off the shelf killed over 9,000 people the first year of COVID. Plus you had the second, so it's over 10. Plus states followed suit. Again, this is all science-based information. Go look it up. Be responsible. Go understand this. So, this is important. I guess I could hit the speed button and make this go real fast. But, yeah, really, go do this. Don't just play guesswork. Go look stuff up. Figure it out. So, figure it up. Figure up the tally and figure up the calculations. So, other states followed suit, because this basically means over 50,000 people died as an extra statistic. Solely connected to the removal of cold medicine from the shelf. How does this translate out? That's comparable to Vietnam. And we're talking about a very narrow category. Again, very narrow category of statistics, because there's more of them. There are more of them. Maybe we'll get into it. So, the problem is, who were these people? They were prosecutors. So this lays into a whole bunch of people. So we have the Donald Trump version. Many people are not satisfied with that at all. And then we have what? We have what? We have the Harris. Well, Harris is with a lot of the beliefs of removing medicines from the shelves that you need, that were always available for your great-great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents and your great-grandparents and your grandparents and your parents, but not for you. Not for you, so sorry. So what does this means? This means that the spread pattern increases if you have grandparents. More likely that they're going to get sick and die. If you're younger, you're strong, okay, fine, you don't care. Maybe that's you, maybe you don't care. But then again, where does this all go? This is one instance beyond the shadow of a doubt that there is no way, there is absolutely no way beyond what? Spread pattern understanding, that we end up with a Vietnam comparison. Why did this happen? Because people were grandstanding. If you read the low numbers behind their reasoning, it's like 14 or 350 people or whatever it is are abusing this, so we're gonna stop this. Or so many thousand people, they're abusing it. So what if certain people are abusing it? Now we have a mass death toll. A mass death toll. And you have a right to be protected from everybody else's stupidity. So this legislating of a few people that are going to do something nutty, what do they do? Oh, well, they were going in and stealing the cold medicine and returning it, going into their bathroom and using their bathtub somehow to turn it into dope or whatever. So what? Let me explain this. That has nothing to do with me and my grandparents and my parents. You don't have the right to interfere with our lives. You're incompetent. You're not a doctor. So when people like me stood up years and years and years ago and said, you can't do this, you're not doctors, you're rolling dice and you're going to get a whole lot of people killed. You're going to get a whole lot of people killed. And that's exactly what happened. This is not, see, I told you so. This is, I'm shaking the shit out of people. I'm shaking you right now. Wake up. These people are dead. We just got a brand new invented problem because of somebody's pen stroke that doesn't need to be there ever at all. It's comparable. We have a brand new Vietnam statistic. We got 50,000+ people dying from a pandemic, from the COVID. Someone says, well, maybe COVID won't come back. Well, hold on a second. Colds and flus have been getting worse and worse. They've been becoming more virulent, as it's told. Well, there's more to the statistic than that. And again, let's use the scientific method of comparison and understanding. And very few people, I've almost never heard it from anyone else, that will chart and say, did you notice that more people each year get sick with colds and flus each year progressively over the last 20-some years? And they go, oh, it's an upward trend. It's, Well, if you also understand the amount of cold medicine that was removed from the shelf, you need to take that statistic. See, these are statistics. You need to understand that this is a real statistic, and you don't see the news handing it to you. You don't see the responsibility of people telling you the scientific truth. So for over 20 years, we've had a phase out of various types of drugs, among them cold medicine, symptom relief medication. This means that we've been having a slow increase in the spread pattern. So now you need to sit there and get real clever. I'm going to let you do it. I'm going to let you do it. You do it. You go ahead and figure out how many types of cold medicines were removed from the shelf over the course of the last 20 years or so. And then look at that graph of how many extra people were getting sick. You go do the research. You go do the research. I'm just going to sit here and say The definitive answer scientifically here is, the truth is, as they kept removing cold medicine from the shelf, more people started getting colds and flus, and more people started dying. And I'll just tell you, the ratio of people who died was more than the ratio of what these people were claiming that they were going to save. But they were grandstanders. They don't have the balls to stand up and tell the truth. That's who these people are. This is Harris. This is Harris. This is, what is this? Robert, current AG, California. That's who these people are. They're grandstanders. They're pretenders. They don't want to admit that incompetence murdered over 9,000 people the first year of COVID. By the way, that's negligent homicide. By the way, that's mass negligent homicide. That's the death penalty. Again, death penalty. But again, what do we have? We have murderers at large. Murderers. They committed murder. They knew they were grandstanding when they did it. And they're trying to lie about what they did. They don't even stand up like human beings and say, well, we might have been wrong about that. No, they're hiding it. Year after year after year, they were hiding it. So when people like me called them up and said, the reason that more people are getting sick is not just because it's a trend, it's partially due to the fact that you keep removing relief medications from the shelves. You're getting people killed. You need to stop. We need a better study. We need a study. They're like, no, we're not going to study it. Why didn't they want to study it? Why? Why didn't they want to study it when there were those of us who stood up and said, I think you've not only made a mistake, I think you're getting people killed. We need to do these studies. And they said no. Why? Could it be because they did the studies secretly and they already knew what the truth was? That they knew that they were getting people killed? Or at least suspected it. Well, neither here nor there. If you used an fMRI lie detector, you could get to the bottom of all of this and just find out one way or another and get finality, get some kind of relief in the knowing for all of the rest of us. But as we review, real quick, final review, let's do a 30-second, 1-minute review, real quick. Use scientific methodologies, Go do it yourself. Figure this out and see these repetitive statistics and understand that these people apparently have no intent whatsoever of putting cold medicine back on the shelf. We desperately, it's a state of emergency. We need to put cold medicine back on the shelf to save lives immediately. Of course, me as president, that would have been on my first week's agenda, declaring a national emergency. And of course, I would have gone after people. These prosecutors and people that participated, I would go after them for negligent homicide. Because in my view, I would do studies and this and that, and I think that they knew what they were doing. And we have certain laws in the books that say it doesn't matter, because when we question them, and you get to that point and you say, are you a doctor? Here's the problem. The problem is that the vast majority of doctors say, we done approved this long time back. You know why? Because it would not only help people have relief and be more productivity, be more productive working in the work set. That's another statistic to work with, by the way. But it will save lives. It will save lives. That's doctors. But prosecutors aren't doctors. And they want to stand up and say they're doctors. So I would be prosecuting. I've got a list of these people I'll prosecute for negligent homicide. Because I believe many of them know what they did. Because there were people similar to me that were calling them and informing them. And some of them were doctors that says, look, you can't do this. You're going to get people killed. You can't do this. So these grandstanders are going to be punished. We're going to end this and put and put basically, well, here's the thing, there's already laws in the books. You don't need to add new laws. You just need to enforce the ones that are already on the books. There's a whole bunch of laws that were created. Did you know there were already laws on the books before that covered it? But nobody was bothering to enforce it. So somebody stands up and says, we're creating a new law to take care of this problem. It's already legal. There's already laws on the books. Nobody's enforcing them. So that's a grandstand. That's a grandstand move. It's like somebody saying we're going to stop caste systems. We're going to make it illegal to have a caste system. And you're like, OMG, have you ever read the Constitution of the United States? I'm serious. Go read the Constitution. Caste systems are not only illegal, death penalty again. It's one of the great taboos. There are certain items that can never be removed from the books. I'm serious. And there's great taboos on there. It says that you can never allow this. You find somebody doing this, you kill them. Because why? They're diabolically opposed to the Constitution. They're attacking and destroying the country. They're participating in mass economic sabotage, and the list goes on. Mandatory. So restoring the Constitution, good thing, yes. Good thing, yes. A lot of people talk about complicated subjects, and well, the funny thing is are you sure that the Constitution indicates yada, yada, yada? Does it? So again, scientific logic and personal privacy. Personal privacy is a big thing. Smoking, go back in time. People, what's Constitution say? I'm going to go over a little bit. Smoking rope can get you keel hauled. That's on the books. Well, what's rope? Well, it's hemp. Actually, smoking rope specifically was give you a headache, and that would impair your productivity. But there was also laws against smoking marijuana where it was getting too inebriated. So ships readily sold marijuana. It was your constitutional right to grow and sell marijuana and make medical extracts. That was your own business. That was your constitutional right to make your own medicine. How about that? And the example of the kill hauling stuff is only when people dramatically abused things. It's very rare. Read about it. It's very, very rare. So it only happened when people would, abuse at an extreme level, getting too loaded, which means what? They lose a sale. You lose a sale, what does that mean? Your ship runs slower. The owners of the ship are going to lose money. Oh, yeah, the pirates. Yeah, about the pirates. Or your enemies. If you're slowed down, they're going to catch up to you and capture your ship and maybe kill you. So that's why your job performance was online. So only the most extreme cases of dereliction of duty and ridiculous inebriation would be addressed. Keep in mind, it's a regular thing to drink every day, Indian Pale Ale. That's a ship drink because it's hard to get enough fresh water. So this means that all sailors were drinking alcohol every day. So it's a natural thing. It was also your natural right, and it was a survival technique. So the idea was, do not get too loaded. So there's part of us ending this up on the constitutional understanding of use your brain. Use your brain. What's self-evident here? When has somebody abused something? And these abuse levels, check the rarity of them. Extremely rare that someone would actually go too far where everybody decided and say, hey, look, we've all been looking at this and we've all decided that, come on, you're screwing up, you're screwing up, and you're risking our necks. You're endangering our lives with what you're doing. And that's when the keel hauling could come into play. So if it was on the books, it was a deterrent. Because usually if somebody got too loaded, it was like, well, go down below and sleep that off. Yeah. So you would have to be a real sick camper to say, I'm going to deliberately get too loaded when it's my shift to work. When you're off shift, it's your business. Oh, you're set to get 8-10 hours sleep? That's your business. Do what you want. That's the Constitution. That's common sense. So, understanding how a lot of these things come into play and how we need to restore the Constitution is of crucial importance. It's taken years for people to finally undo some of this screwballism, which, by the way, I have videos someplace. It comes from the German Royal Empire. They're the ones that put the biggest amount of effort. They did use the British and other people, but it was the Royal German Empire that put the most amount of money and the most agents in the area to basically create this separation of people's right to make their own medicine and turn them into narcotics and ways to punish you. So everything that ended up coming out of the drug punishment phase, the primary author of it was the Royal German Empire, which, by the way, is pretty much extinct. There's nobody really left. There's very few people that might be connected to the blood chain, but the Royal German Empire has not been around for a very long time. It was at the end completely going. It was just going extinct in World War I, basically, and that was when Hitler was in the forces. So. It was a novelty to mention pre-World War II, 30s era, 2030s era, but it was extinct. It was gone. World War I ended it for sure, but it actually ended kind of sort of a little bit before that. Things were transitioning into different types of government. Figured I would mention that for those of you that might want to know a little bit about that, and I'll make a high-speed version of this for young folk. So basically, we've laid out a bunch of stuff, and we understand, do you want to save lives? I'm serious, do you want to save lives? Because if you want to save lives, you can use common sense and understand the difference between it's your rights, it's your body, it's your decision. But when you're going to endanger all of us, well, then that kind of changes the program. We have to step in and say, no, we can't let you do that. So technically, it's always supposed to have been your classic right to ride a horse, to own a wagon, to operate a wagon, to drive a vehicle. It's your right. Not your privilege, it's your right. So again, screwballism with our government changing the original constitutional meaning and construct. And that's something I had in the archive, is when that would actually occur, how it was occurring, the actual transition in language, and how people broke their word, how people gave sworn testimony and says, oh, no, we're not going to do that. Oh, that's never going to happen. So it's really interesting that there were some elections to allow a certain amount of authority, but not more, that ended up getting abused. And that was another real interesting archive item. So if you really want to save lives, cheese kills 60,000 people a year. 3,800 children die from cheese every year right here in the United States. So if you want to save more lives than are lost to mass shooters, just ban cheese. Just ban cheese, and you'll save 3,800 kids' lives and 40-some thousand adult lives. Just like that. Real quick. Just like that. But that would mean that you would have to portray the holy order of the round pizza. So there's your ethics on the table. If you're talking about ethics, I used to have a series of lots of statistics that if you actually want to save lives, here's a whole bunch of things that you can do and get, make huge headway, fantastic numbers. But some people don't want to do that. They got a different idea. Is that corruption? But when you're talking about, like where I laid out the stuff about the cold medicine, that's genocide. That's grandstanders that aren't doctors who went against doctors' word, who went against the word of people that kept informing them, you need to stop doing this. You can't do this to begin with. You're going to kill people. Okay, look, you're getting people killed now. The curve's changing. We have an increased spread pattern each and every year. And they lie about it. They lie about the phone calls. They lie about people that told them. And now we have COVID. Now it's come home to roost. A new Vietnam death toll has been invented. So what do? People look around, well, how do we have any candidates left to vote for? Well, I'm running for president. And I have the most brilliant economic plan of anybody. So, and I have a good tactical mind. And quite frankly, I'm going to beat the snot out of anybody. You give me the reins in government, I'm going to beat the snot out of people. And, this is something that would bring reason. I've had people say there's a reason the archive would keep getting attacked. And that's because you're smart tactically. You have a 240 IQ. And there are people that are afraid of you because you're not corrupt and they are. And that's at the core of this. That's why we have insurrection, mass rebellion. We really do. And we actually have a form of invasion as well. We have mass spy infiltration. We'll talk about that another time. So I want to thank you for your time, Michael Crosby. Please, please, please stay with the scientific methodologies, because we have to. Because if we don't, we're never going to have a baseline of understanding where things are at. I thank you for your time.